Right. Hello to everybody that's here, and welcome to Supporting EAL Pupils in Secondary with a focus today on our new to English learners. So my name is Alison Roy, and I'm the EAL teacher for the South area. Jenny Gray covers the Mid and the North, and currently we're the only two EAL teachers in Highland. As I said to some of you before, we are going to record this training, so I'd really appreciate it if people would have the cameras off and the microphones. That would just improve the quality of the recording. We're hoping the training will take about an hour, but we would like to think that there'll be time at a later point for you to explore some of the resources that we'll talk about during this training. Jenny is going to put in a link to the chat, so that'll be the kind of function of communication. Jenny's going to put a link into the chat for the slides, and I will refer you to this to links on the slides during the training that you'll open up to do a couple of tasks. Okay, so that's that link just gone in on the slides. So just like I said, welcome to all of you, and it'd be really helpful, just nice just to see in the chat if you could put in your name and your role and the name of your school. That'd be helpful just so everybody can see who's here today. Just while people are doing that and just getting the slides open, I'll just go over what's the content of the training today. So first we're going to look a little bit at theory, and that's going to be done through a Kahoots game. So if any of you have worked in secondary classes, which I'm sure you all have, obviously, and that you'll have maybe come across Kahoots, so I hope you'll enjoy that. We're then going to look at the EAL profiles, which is a kind of measure of the levels of English for secondary students. And then we're going to sort of go over some of the strategies that can be used for new to English learners and differentiation. Very importantly, how technology can support our learners, celebrating their home language, and just at the end, some time for some questions and a feedback form. Okay, so hello to people as they come on the chat. That's good to see where we're coming from. So I hope everybody's managed to get the slides open. And the first task that you're going to do, which hopefully will be a bit of fun, if you can click on the link on slide 4, and that will take you to the Kahoots quiz. It'll probably take about 8 minutes, so I'll set the timer for 8 minutes, then come back after that time. And just while you're doing the quiz, could you take a mental note of any answers that surprised you? And it'd be really good to hear about these in your chat. So if you can just add to the chat any of the answers that surprised you and the information that you've learned that you weren't aware of before. Okay, I will see you in 8 minutes.
Well, Alison, a few people are having issues with the
Right,
link.
okay.
So I've copied and pasted the one from the slideshow, but a few people are saying it needs a pin.
Could you try and copy and paste the one from the primary one, just in case there's any issue with that one?
Okay, I shall do that. Just give me a 1 second. Sorry, guys. Typical.
Yeah, apologies for that, folks. That was working earlier, but I'm not sure what's happened there.
Yeah, just give me a second. I haven't got it open, of course, so give me a second. Oh, sorry, I'm having problems with. Not finding the link. It's just totally like that. Give me a second. Not coming up now. Got it. Okay, let's see if this one. I've put a new one in, so if everyone wants to try that one that I've just put in, and see if that works. If it does work, can somebody just reply and put a wee comment in to say that it is working, just so that we know? Okay, that's grand. It's working now, Alison.
Okay, that's great.
So we might need to push on a little bit. Set the timer again, maybe.
Okay, I'll do that. Yep.
I think just so everybody gets a chance.
So some of you, I think, are just coming to the end or maybe of the quiz there, and that'd be great if you could put your comments on the chat. I really apologise for that technical hitch. I'm glad we got there eventually. So really welcome any comments on the chat just now.
Yeah, we've got one saying the amount of languages spoken surprised me, especially considering the number of countries that there are. almost all the questions. Well, that's good. That's why you're here.
Exactly, it's a learning curve.
I think quite often in the quiz there are quite a few that people are just really quite surprised by. The amount of time to learn social English is much longer. Yeah, I think that comes up every single time. 2 years seems a very long time, but for some children and pupils that is how long it takes. So while that's happening, there's big gaps in their learning, etc. Some are quicker, but it can take 2 years.
Yeah, and it's more that sort of fluency in their social English where they sound quite natural with their peers that just takes a bit longer. I mean, obviously they start to communicate before that. Lots of varied answers within your group. Yeah, Andrew, yes.
Yeah, not lead to a bit of discussion.
Exactly. Okay, we'll just move on. I mean, some of the, like I was saying, Jenny's already mentioned a little bit about the social language. Sometimes people find it surprising it takes 5 to 7 years, and sometimes even longer when people's home languages are very different from English to actually achieve fluency. And that fluency is when they are as able to sort of read, write, speak in the second language in English as they would do in their home language. We're going to speak a lot later on about the importance of maintaining the home language, and the fact maybe nobody's put that as something that's surprising is very hopeful that everybody is aware how important it is for people to maintain their home language, to have that richness of being bilingual. And also just to point to note is that some EL pupils do go through a silent period, and that can vary. Sometimes more common with younger pupils, they're not exclusively, but they're just taking the language, working out the sounds until they're confident and ready to actually start using the language verbally. Okay, so moving on a little bit from some of what we've come across in the quiz. For EL pupils, there are 5 stages of English language acquisition, and this is not a kind of measure just used in Highland, but throughout the world, throughout the English-speaking world, I should say. So, as it suggests, new to English, when pupils can communicate in 1 or 2 words, short phrases, maybe yes, no. They're developing basic vocabulary groups, numbers, family members, weather, school subjects, rooms, objects, etc. And then moving on, maybe 6 months to a year onto the early acquisition stage, using short sentences that get the meaning across. I go swimming in Ukraine, my dog, big and brown and very nice. Basic everyday vocabulary. It's still mostly in the present tense, but beginning to use regular forms in the past tense. E.g., I walked, I listened, and some common irregular forms. For example, I went, I saw. So I like to say that stage 1 and 2 can be maybe that up to 2 years of pupils developing that social English. And then moving on to developing competence, stage 3, when the vocabulary is increasing with more subject-specific words, more complex senses, a wider range of tenses. And then at competent, pupils can sometimes stay at that stage for a while till they really acquire that larger range of tenses, a wider subject-specific vocabulary to access the curriculum in all areas, more complex sentences, and awareness of language style needed for different subjects. They may still make errors at this stage, and they might have gaps in colloquial and idiomatic language, such as we're on the same wavelength or stop pulling my leg. Also in English, phrasal verbs can be very difficult. That's when you've got a verb and a preposition. For example, she's just taken up knitting, and you've got the confusion for the word, for example, the phrasal verb got off. He got off the bus, but we got off on the wrong foot. So you can see that these are challenging for students even at that higher level. So what we aim to do for each EAL pupil in Highland is they should have an EAL profile. And that is, you can see that that's in the kind of top left-hand corner of that document. It's a Word doc. Usually these are set up by an EAL teacher, either Jenny or myself, and then they're updated as required when a pupil comes new to your school. They're a way of tracking the pupil's English progression and can help identify discrepancies, for example, between a pupil's oral fluency and literacy. So literacy can take a little longer for EAL pupils. Some pupils also may have a literacy difficulty, and this could be missed as their literacy challenges can be attributed to them being EAL rather than having a specific literacy difficulty. So the profile, is very important in tracking a pupil's progress. Some schools set up their own EAL profiles with guidance from EAL teachers, and as you can see, there's a link on the slide for guidance notes available to staff, where we can help with the updates if needed. Okay, so just preparing for new people, there's various things that are very important to think about. Preparing for you before they arrive and just in that initial weeks of a new pupil starting. We would always advise that to try and invite the families in for a meeting before the pupils start school. Check to see if you'll need an interpreter, and there's details of that on our blog of Global Interpreting Service, which the school can book an interpreter to come in and do a face-to-face meeting. So the purpose of the initial meeting to gather background information on the pupils, for example, the languages spoken by pupils at home, what language they're taught in school, their previous school experience, subjects they studied, did they have any gaps in education, did they study English in school as an extracurricular subject. And in terms, a lot of schools are receiving or welcoming Ukrainian pupils at present, and definitely the language is a very important one to note, because some pupils have a preferred language, maybe Ukrainian or it may be Russian, and definitely to explore that with the people before they start school. Also, at that initial meeting, an opportunity to hear the correct pronunciation of children's names. Some students might use a version of the official name to find out what that is and make sure that we're addressing with the name they want to use at school. To get some additional information about each child, their hobbies, their interests. And for senior students, it's important to choose subjects and levels which match their interests and language level in English. There might need to be a little bit of flexibility around the timetable choice, and that might need to be changed just after a few weeks when students are more aware of the levels in the class and what each subject involves. So some of the subjects might be different from what they've been used to studying in their home country. It's also a good time to establish whether a flexible transition timetable is more appropriate for the pupil. There might have been, especially with refugee pupils, a lot of changes in the pupil's life, and it's important to find a model of transition which works best for each pupil. Also at this initial meeting, to establish the best method and person to contact for communication. Many parents will prefer email because they can use the translation tools. That's much easier than perhaps a phone call. Also at the initial meeting, obviously very important that the students get a tour of the school. The school may look and feel quite different from the school they've been used to, and they find out where the classrooms are, canteen, sports field, etc. And to welcome new students, it'd be very nice if there are multilingual signs or dual language signs in their languages around the school, and they can see signs of their own language in the school setting. Once you've gathered this information, it's really important to share all this information with all staff members, so everybody working in the school is aware of the children's home languages and their interests, and that can be shared among staff. I'm now going to look a little bit at the Google Translate app, which is very useful in an initial meeting, particularly if you're maybe not able to get an interpreter for a particular meeting. So you probably all use this, and just to make people aware of what the different tools within the Google Translate app. For students, they should add the app, add it as an app on the Chromebooks. Here, I'm just going to go to in the browser, but students can add it as an app on their Chromebooks. So also you've got the written. You can write a message in, get it translated. You can hear the translation read out. So again, if a pupil is not a pupil or a parent is not literate, that audio function might support that. You can also use the microphone to speak into it, which I won't do here, but you can click on that and speak into it, and it works well, probably better with adult voices at times. It can be a little bit tricky with younger children, but it does work quite well. So you can speak in, and then you can hear that translation being read out. Also, just to note, there's also a document function that you can upload PDFs and get them translated. So that might be useful for some school documents that the school might want to translate and give out to parents at a meeting. Right. Okay. Also, many schools actually, or not many schools, some of the schools that have got new pupils, particularly from Ukraine, are using an app called Say Hi. They're mostly using it on phones. So that's, and some of the schools have said it's been really useful because it just is a little bit more user friendly, maybe than Google Translate, to have a conversation with a pupil. You just click on the microphone button and it's going to speak in English, and then it translates it, reads it out immediately in the target language, whether that's Ukrainian or Russian or another language, and then the people can then speak in their target language, and it's read out in English. So it's a great tool just to aid communication, particularly in these earlier stages when people are very new to English.
Can I just add to that, Alison? There's also a little photograph function, so you can take a photograph of documents and it will translate that document for you. Again, possibly not terribly accurately, but I've used it on a few things and it's quite good. A bit like Google Lens, which does the same thing.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Yep. Okay. So we've actually spoken to a number of our EAL pupils to see how they felt when they first arrived. You can see some of the comments there in the dialogue boxes, and just to say when they first arrived at the new school and what helped. I suppose what stood out from the comments given were the importance of positive relationships in the schools and the benefits of technology to help them communicate. All the pupils, I have to say without exception, which is very encouraging, spoke about the encouragement and support from their teachers, their buddies and their peers. They also mentioned that joining after school clubs and getting a job are also a great way of breaking down language barriers. We're now going to listen to one pupil talking about his first few days at his new school and what helped him. So just coming back. Okay. So just take a minute to come round here.
Hi, my name is Zoran and I come from Pakistan. I speak Urdu. I knew a little bit of English words before I arrived. Words like hi, hello, how are you, goodbye, thank you. My first day at Inverness High School was really stressful because there were so many people. I had a friend, he was from Bangladesh, but could he was speak Urdu. He was translate me everything, which was a good help, which was a good or big help for me. And also teachers, especially my ESOL teachers, helped me so much. They showed me how to use a Chromebook and Google Translate, and also showed me how to use a picture dictionary. That was good for me. In Pakistan, they were very different. We hardly had any time off, and the teacher was really strict. We had 4 to 5 times more work to do, around 8 to 10 pages of work per class per 3 days. I like Scotland, but I really missed my friends and grandparents.
Okay, so students are again very positive about their experience, but acknowledging that things were tough at the beginning, and just there was a process to go through as they became more familiar with the language. Just to kind of reiterate that the model that we use in Scotland is the EAL pupils access mainstream education. There's no kind of standalone provision, and research very much shows that is the best model, both in terms of equality of access to the curriculum and in terms of them acquiring language proficiency in English. However, we have to see that our EAL pupils are faced with a dual challenge of learning both a new language and learning a range of subjects through that new language. If you think, for example, of our high school students with National 5 or higher French, they would be able to perhaps communicate on a social level in French, but would need support in a much wider range of vocabulary to be able to attend a high school in France and access the curriculum there as they would do in English. So therefore, specific teaching strategies and resources are therefore necessary to make the language of the curriculum accessible to learners who use EAL. Now, bearing that in mind, although, as I was saying, immersion and access to the mainstream curriculum is the best model for EAL students, some students may also need additional language input, particularly in the earlier stages. For students that have had limited or no previous experience of learning English, it would be beneficial to provide a language induction programme for them. This can be done in a number of ways, but consideration should be given to the subjects that pupils come out of to receive this additional language input. Generally, this input is delivered by PSAs, ASN teachers, EAL teachers, or sometimes senior students work with younger pupils. The secondary pack shown on the slide has links to resources to teach pupils basic vocabulary and phrases to support their initial communication in English. This is a live document and resources have been added, so it's useful to store it in your Google Drive and keep it in a digital format. Please take some time maybe to explore this pack if you're involved in induction work with our students who are new to English. And Jenny and I are also available to offer training to staff on how to deliver this programme. Okay, we're now going to have to get a feel for what it might be like for new to English students in a class scenario. In a minute, I'm going to show you a text in another language, and I'd like you to consider firstly how you might feel if you were presented with this and expected to understand it. What skills or knowledge will you use to help you understand this text? What is there about the text that helped you understand some of it? And what could have helped more? So I'm just going to show the text. A lot of you will recognise this language. So if you just take a few minutes to read through it, and if you could put in the chat and the answer to the questions just at the side. So how would you feel? How did you feel when you saw the text? How would you start to understand it? And what helped you to understand the text?
I think everyone's still there.
Yep, just any comments? It'd be great to share on the chat. It's particularly how you felt when you first saw it, because I think that puts us in our shoes. Okay.
Good. We've got a comment. A few key words are similar to English. So obviously, they're especially in languages like sort of Spanish and French, German. They're often words that are similar. You can make a connection. Good. The pictures with labels. Yeah, very, very powerful to have a picture with labels. A picture tells 1,000 words, etc. Gina says, I felt confused. Some familiar looking words in the picture helped me to understand. Yep, good. Mostly total fog though. Yep, and that would describe it very well, Janice, for EAL people coming in. Yep. Debbie felt the same as doing the quiz, but bewildered. Some of those are similar. Green words, keywords. Picture is a good clue. Yeah, I think you're right there, Debbie. That there's some keywords there that have been highlighted, and there's some in capitals and block and bold, which can sometimes sort of highlight.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thanks for the comments. I think bearing in mind that a lot of us are also that I was just actually Adrienne has just said what I was going to say. You want to read that out, Jenny?
Yeah, that's right. If we already had some, they'd come across it in their home language, and it wouldn't be too bad. And the picture helped, but not not on the arrows to correspond with the text might have helped. Yeah, so arrows pointing to show which part they were talking about, that would have really helped. Okay, excellent, you're adding to that worksheet.
Well, exactly. That what could have helped more is obviously, yes, exactly. There could be improvements maybe made in the actual layout of the worksheet, which is a point to consider. And I think, as you said, just, the pupils have got prior knowledge of the subject. That obviously goes a long way, that they've already studied it in their home language. Therefore, they can transfer that knowledge and try and kind of then work out the new language. Something else that might have helped is providing a dual language glossary. So that gives, so we've got some of the key words there and translated, well, the opposite way around, translated from Spanish to English. So students can get some of that technical language needed to access many of the secondary level texts. And also, in addition to teaching subject-specific words, it's really useful to give new to English students sentence starters, which you can see in black on the slide, which they could use to be able to talk or write about their learning. Because obviously words alone are difficult to then speak about what you've learned. But if you can give some starters, then that then helps them contribute and take bigger part in the lesson. Talking about glossaries, there's lots of ready-made glossaries in a range of languages for some secondary subjects. And on the slide, just at the title, they're linked to some websites which you can look at later on the slides. So students can also create their own glossaries, either in paper form at the back of their jotters, which works really well. Just a line down the middle with the word in English translated into their language, and then sometimes for younger students you might add a picture if it's possible to do a picture for that particular piece of vocabulary. Or they can create also glossaries in digital format, and we're going to look at that a little bit on the Chromebook. It's really good practice to encourage students to do that, to create these glossaries, is to support them to identify the key vocabulary from a lesson. So as I said, later on in the presentation, we'll look at a tool within Read and Write that also creates a vocabulary list for students. Now, a lot of you mentioned just words that were familiar. So I think we have to be mindful that some of our students have developed literary skills in a very distinct script, which may be very unfamiliar to us. So, we wouldn't recognise it, but, obviously for the student, that is their home language and their script. So just also to say that students who are literate in their home language, whether it has a different script or not, will not need to be taught how to read again. If they've already got literacy in Ukrainian or Russian, which are different scripts, or Arabic, then they will be able to transfer these skills to a new script. However, they might need more support to develop, for example, letter formation, phonological awareness in English, and to become proficient in moving between the two languages, just when the languages are very different. So we're going to go back now to the photosynthesis lesson, and I would like you to think about additional strategies which we've not mentioned, which could support you to access this text, and what types of follow-up activities will be accessible, for example, for a new to Spanish learner to complete. So up the top, on the top left-hand corner of the slide, there's a black box that says EAL Highland. So that, if you click on that link, and that's also on slide 18, and that will take you to the strategies page. I'll just show you what that looks like. Leave that down. Oops. So I'll just do it that way. Okay, that'll take you to this page. And if you can look at the strategies on stage 1 for listening and talking, reading and writing, and think of any other strategies that would support a pupil to access a text like this. If it was the opposite, they were looking at it in English, as people that's new to English, and any appropriate follow-on activities after reading this text. And so I maybe should have said that if you could feed any of these, any strategies that you think would help pupils to access, or any follow-up activities, if you could add them to the chat, that we could share them with everyone. Gina, maybe try and copy and paste it into the browser if it's not linking straight from the slides. That seemed to be a problem before. don't know if you could put the link in the chat, Jenny, if that's not working. Still not working. Okay.
That's it in the chat now.
Is it in the chat? Right, okay, I was just
Yeah.
about to do that. Okay, it's in the chat now, okay. Is that working now, Gina? That's great.
That's
good.
I just want to apologise to Adrienne for reading her comment wrong. She was saying numbers on the arrows would have been really to correspond, would have been useful, absolutely, to have numbers to correspond with which parts. Yeah, not. Skim reading.
Say any strategies that you see that you think would be useful to help students access this lesson or follow-on activities that would be accessible to a new to English, or in this case, a new to Spanish learner. You could add them to the chat.
Must be really exploring the strategies.
We just give everybody another minute there just to look at some of these strategies, and then we'll move on. Disability. That's great. Somebody just said they're exploring the links, and that's fabulous. That's you're taking time. You know, if people are taking the time to that's great. There's a lot in there, and these are all on the blog, on the EAL Highland blog.
Cool. So we've got a comment. Modelling language is a good start, but maybe start by teaching phrases that pupils are likely to use. Except, for example, can you help me with this question? That's a very good point, Gina, that actually sometimes they don't even know those phrases for asking for help and how to access it. So teaching them those phrases first.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. And just trying to, so students will then maybe try and use it and just always try to model the correct form back and extend their language, but without correcting them. So they say, can you help me question? Oh, yes, I can help you with this question, just so they get the correct forms and they can hear the structure of the sentences. Right, well, maybe just move on and look at the next slide. So this shows you some of the examples of maybe possible follow-on activities or activities that would relate to the lesson on photosynthesis. These are the kind of activities which would work well for an EAL learner, some of which you maybe mentioned there. We always want to draw on students' prior knowledge and provide a rich context. So obviously the use of images, graphic organisers, diagrams are very important. Make the English language explicit in the classroom, so point out key forms and structures that allows pupils to meet the language demands of the task. Give them scaffolding, give them sort of speaking and writing frames so they can see the structure and try and use that. We want to develop the learner's independence, so working cooperatively works well, taking turns, being able to ask for help, as you said. And lastly, but most important, we need to support learners with EAL to extend their vocabulary. Vocabulary is key on giving them success at the school, and we need to kind of take time to teach vocabulary and maybe in using translation tools so they can translate into their own language through flashcards and images, so they're constantly learning new vocabulary and building up their repertoire for the different subject areas. Okay, now we're now going to take a look at a number of the digital tools. I mean, as I said, a lot of and so I'm just saying, Gina, your comment there, lots of speaking exercises, and that is absolutely key, that often students in a big class don't get enough time sometimes to practice their speaking and practice it within a context, within a subject area. So any speaking activities really give students the skills to improve their learning, and also then the skills to then transfer the speaking skills into written skills.
Yeah, and that's where as well, I think the peer work and the group work is very powerful, because they get to practice it with a peer, which is a lot more supportive, and they feel.
Yeah, definitely. So as we said, and a lot of our pupils said when we heard some of the comments from existing, if you like, current EAL pupils, is that digital skills are key. So we're going to take a little bit of time today to look at some of the digital skills that all the students have in their Chromebooks, and all the information on how to use these tools, how to add them and everything for students is all in our Using Technology to Support EAL Learners in Secondary School, this document on the slide, which has a link. So I'm now going to move into, well, first thing actually, this again, the information for how to set up the Chromebook is on the technology document. And that's probably the first job that we would do when a new EAL pupil comes into school, is to make sure the Chromebook's set up with additional languages added. They can also add an on-screen keyboard for pupils using a different script. But some people are finding that a little bit annoying, and a Ukrainian boy said to me the other day, it's very annoying because it pops up all the time. So what a lot of students are moving to do is, when the script is different, is buy transparent stickers, which we can get from the dreaded Amazon, quite cheap and cheerful, and then they can stick their letters from their home language alongside the English letters of the keyboard. And there's a simple shortcut they can switch between when they're inputting in English or in this case, I've said Ukrainian or other languages for their scripts. So that would be the first job to do with the Chromebooks. We're going to look now a bit at the Google Translate. We've looked at the app, so we're going to look now at the Google Translate extension. So if I just go on to a classroom page, and there's kind of two things that you can do with the Google Translate extension. If you're on Classroom, students on Classroom, they can right click, and you can see there it says translate, and then that is actually says Ukrainian in Ukrainian script. Now,
Sorry, Alison, that we're not seeing that. Can you?
Oh, sorry.
You try and right click again.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, I'll right click. Can you see that?
No, it's not showing you the little the box that pops up.
Let's try again. No.
No, it must just be the way that the sharing works.
Okay, well that's a shame. Okay, well, what would normally happen? You right click on a class, and you click anywhere in the class, and a box jumps up, and if you haven't set it to the language, it says translate to English. So then you click on that, and it gives you the option to choose another language. The other thing that the Google Translate extension can do, and again, you have to set it to the language you want to do it, but it's a little pop-up. So again, can we see that okay, Jenny?
Yep, you can see
you
that.
can see. Okay, so you can highlight a word. You can see the kind of Google Translate icon pops up. You click on that, and then it pops out as in the translated form. In this case, it's been translated into Ukrainian, and it can read the word as well. And you can do that with more than one word. So that's the two functions. The first one that I showed you that you couldn't see on the screen is translating the whole page. So if I click that, it would all translate. Well, I can show you what it looks like.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, so if I click that, then all the page translates into Ukrainian, and I can put it back into English. So that's obviously very useful for students, particularly in the earlier stages when they need to have instructions or tasks on Google Classroom translated to understand what they need to do. And then you've got the pop-up where you do the right click with a word or a couple of words, and it will give the translation. Okay, so that's with the Google Translate extension. We're now going to, well, just go back here and...
Can I just add as well that unfortunately sometimes the extension doesn't always, the pop-up doesn't always work. So just be aware that sometimes it's temperamental, is how we describe it.
Yeah, it can be. I'm also a little bit aware of time, that we're a bit running behind. I'm sorry about that, because that was that initial technical difficulty with the quiz. But I'll just, well, if you're okay, we're just going to go a little bit later than 3 o'clock here. So the next tool I'm going to look at is Read and Write for Google Chrome. Just to let you know, these are all on the students' Chromebooks. If you can't see it in the kind of book mark bar to the right of the address bar, look at the black sort of jigsaw puzzle, click on it, and you have to pin this Read and Write symbol. The same for your laptops. You should be able to have it on your laptop, and it comes up as a bar. So I'm going to show you some of the tools from the Read and Write: picture dictionary, translation tool, the read aloud, highlighting words and creating a vocabulary list, and the predictive text. So if we go into another tab, okay, this is just on a web page on BBC Bite Size. And the first thing, so I'm going to add the Read and Write bar to it. You can see it along the top. The first thing you need to do is go to the 3 dots and go to Settings, and set, if you just scroll down, set the translation language. I've got it set to Russian. You also probably want to put the speed down a little bit so the read back speed is not really quick. Okay, and then let's do the read. So you can do the read aloud function, highlight, and then click on read aloud.
Energy is conserved in chemical reactions, so that...
Okay, so that will read aloud what you've highlighted and read on. You can also use the picture dictionary. So this is a really good dictionary, which has got more than just basic vocabulary. It's got a lot of curricular vocabulary. So you've got the word chemical, so the student can get an image for it. And also you can use the translator. Again, mine is set at the moment to Ukrainian. No, it's not, it's set to Russian. And that has got a read aloud function for the Russian. That have not got proficiency in literacy in their home language. Another great tool for Read and Write, and just to say for the Read and Write, that the beauty of it, if you like, is you can use it on any type of page. You can use it on a web page, add the bar to the top of a web page, slides, docs, Google Forms, Google Classroom. It adds on to everything, whereas what I just showed you with the Google Translate extension, that is for a web page and the Google Classroom. It doesn't work in the same way on docs and slides, but the Google Translate does. So the other thing we can do is we can highlight words using the highlighters. And okay, and if I've highlighted a few words, you then can create a vocabulary list. So I've actually done one before just to make it a little bit quicker. So if I then switch tabs, if I clicked on that, clicked on the and went to this tab, you can see it then collates all the words you've highlighted, and it's using this icon here, the vocabulary list, and it brings them into the vocabulary list with dictionary meanings and the symbols. You've also got some images as well. Now we're kind of in Google Docs. I know this is a bit of a quick demonstration of all the tools that are out there, but as I said, there's more explication on our technology document. You can take time to look at the ones that you think will be helpful for yourself and your pupil. So as I said, the Google Read and Write can be used on any type of page. The only slight disadvantage of Google Read and Write is you cannot copy and paste the translation into a Google Doc. So now that we're in Docs, there is a way of doing that. So you can highlight a word, for example, chemical, and if you go to under Tools, you've got an option to translate the whole document, but we don't want to do that in this case. We're going to go to the extensions, and you've got Docs, Paragraph, Translate, and it says Start. So I've actually opened it. You can see it there on the right-hand side. So if I copy the word chemical and then click Translate, it then translates it into Ukrainian again in this case, and then you need to click off the word and you can insert it into the document. So that would allow students to translate individual words that they don't understand and to have that annotated within a Google Doc. The same thing can be done, or a very similar thing can be done in slides, because again, Read and Write can be added to slides, but you can't copy and paste the translations and annotate the slides. So again, this is under the add-ons. So you click on add-ons, you go to Slides Translator, Translate Text Box. And I've already got it there sitting at the side. So again, click on a text box. I've got it set to Portuguese. Select your language, translate, and it will come in there. You can then copy and paste it into your slides. So it can run very small, so you might want to make that a bit bigger, but you can make it bigger so the student has then got you've got the slides in English and you've got the translation alongside of what you need in your own home language. Just see that a wee bit bigger there. Okay, so again, so both within Docs and slides, you've got translators within the actual apps, okay, rather than something that works across everything. Not only just the, so just go back a minute to the slideshow. Okay, so you can see there the Google extension add-ons for Google Docs and Google Slides. We're also now going to look a little bit at what you can do for audiovisual material, particularly in YouTube. So students, to help them, they can have subtitles in English, which helps a lot of students, and they can also have auto-generated subtitles in other languages. So it would be helpful for maybe teachers to share a video for students that are very new to English, share a video or the link for a video, and then students can set it to their own language and watch it with the subtitles in their own language. And just in general, for all the material we've been talking about, for whether it's docs or slides or any classroom tasks, it's obviously really helpful for EAL learners that are new to English to have the tasks in digital format and for teachers to post that in classroom so they can translate the instructions, they can translate the tasks and annotate things rather than it being in paper form. Obviously, it makes it a lot easier to have it in a digital format. So we just look at an example for the YouTube video. Just take a minute maybe to come through.
Want to share the tab, Alison?
I have shared it. It's just it's not quite coming. Oh, it's coming through now. Okay. So if you go to, we've actually got it set. I think it's set to Ukrainian subtitles. It's within. It's not. It's my lack of language awareness. It's actually Greek. So if you go to the subtitles and you can see it's got English auto-generated, and then you set the language. Okay. So you can click on auto-generate and select a language that you would like the subtitles translated into. Okay, it's not perfect. I think there will be errors, but I think it would definitely give people a sense of the content of what they're watching, and it's better than not having the subtitles. Okay, you've got a range of languages there. Okay, so that's for YouTube. Also, the other thing you can do if pupils are watching it in English, you can change the playback speed to make it a little bit slower. So again, when they're acquiring a little bit more English, but they can't keep up with the speed of many videos, play it back a little bit slower and maybe adding English subtitles that got a little bit more language to understand. Okay, so that was a lot of digital tools there. And as I said, they're all in, I'm just going to press on, they're all in this document. They're using technology to support EAL learners in secondary schools. So please take a little bit of time to look through that at your leisure and just look at how some of these tools work. So just go back. Now, again, I'm just probably going to whisk through this a little bit, though it is a very important part of the curriculum that, as the quote says, really, we're not just in the business of teaching people's English. We want to celebrate all their linguistic background and their cultural background and the heritage that they've come from. So it's really, in secondary schools, looking for opportunities to do this, sometimes in the curriculum, where appropriate, maybe in geography, history, RE or English. For example, one school chose to perform a play for a well-known Polish story to reflect the diversity and to showcase other cultures. Just looking for opportunities to do this. Another school recently created a school magazine. They did a lovely centre spread, which were the stories of many of our EAL pupils, how they felt in their first few weeks, what helped them, the difference between their new school and their old school, and things they missed about their home country. So just again raising awareness amongst all students of the changes that they've had in their lives. I think all students like to learn about other languages and cultures, so it's looking for opportunities to do this. Some of you will have done language events, maybe where different languages are showcased within the school. High Life Highland in the libraries can source quite a number of books in other languages. So it's worth asking. There's also some websites that have stories in other languages. And again, some of these are on the technology document of sites that students can use to read stories in their home language. I'll just show you one that we have here. This one is called World Stories. Again, you can see that this is books that are available in a number of different languages. And just, for students, it's good for people's all-round learning that they continue their literacy skills in their home language, and it actually supports their acquisition of English. We don't want them to stagnate at a certain level of literacy, when at the point they move to the new school. Want them to continue to read and ideally to write in their home language and use these skills as well as acquiring English. There's also a great site called Book Creator, which students can create books and they can have dual language books. And this one is obviously maybe aimed at slightly younger pupils about their family, and they've written in their home language and in English, and they've added audio in their home language. But this could be done for a number of different subject areas as a way of kind of like recording their learning and using graphics, images, and their home language to sort of really show what they've learned in a particular subject. Okay, so just coming to the end a little bit of our presentation today. Actually, just one more comment. Again, people will be aware of ESOL. Generally, this may for students that are not new to English, that may be completing the National 5 and higher ESOL qualifications. But if a student comes new to English in the senior level of secondary school, then they may well be involved in doing some of the ESOL qualifications N2, N3, perhaps N4. So just to make you aware they are there, that the SQA qualifications start at N2 ESOL. And if any schools are thinking that this would be appropriate for their students, then please to get in touch with Jenny and I, and we could go through how these qualifications work. Okay, and again, I've mentioned the technology document. Please, again, take time to have a look at. There's a lot of interesting websites and further information how to use some of the apps and extensions and add-ons that I've spoken about today. Okay, last piece of information, we have mentioned the blog. You were using it to find the strategies earlier on. All the information I've spoken about today is on the EAL blog, and I would suggest if you followed it, then that way you would get any new information and new resources being added to the blog. So great if you want to even just take a minute at the end of the training just to go onto the blog and put in your email address and follow it. I think that you'd find that beneficial. Okay, we are a little bit short in time, and I'm imagining that maybe people might not have time to ask questions, but please, if there's anything you'd like to ask, I want to add that to the chat. And I'm just going to go on and go into the feedback, but please add any questions at the moment, and Jenny will feedback on that as we go along. So just again, probably just time to reflect on your own time, rather than adding to the chat, just something that you've learned from today's training and what's been useful. Feel free to add this to the chat if you've got time just now. And also just maybe what might be your actions and steps you might take as a result of this training. You know, what would work for your school, what might be needed in your school to happen, just some of the things that have been talked about today. We would really welcome if everybody could fill in the feedback form. It probably would take maybe 2 minutes max, so that would be great if people could just click on this link just now. Again, you might have to copy and paste it into the browser, but it should work. It certainly worked earlier. And we appreciate if you could fill in the feedback form and just submit that to us now. And just before I finish, just to say a big thanks to you all for coming on today. Really appreciate giving up your time to come on this training. But it's definitely not the only support that we can offer. And Jenny and I are very much in contact, and please contact us by email if you get any queries or any questions that arise at a later date. You would like some support or signposting to resources, then please get in touch. We welcome your emails. Okay.
Yes, there was a good point made. It would be useful if all staff could get to do this. Well, we have recorded it, and that is going to be put onto the blog. And we are meeting with our new line manager tomorrow to maybe talk about how to get this information down to staff, because all these documents have been available for quite a long time, but they often don't filter down. They get sent out and then they don't get down to the people on the floor that actually need them.
No, that is true, definitely. So please, or really, I mean, anything that's been shared today, really welcome if you would like to share that out on a wider basis at your own school. Okay.
So Gina's asking, could we get a copy of the slides? So you should have, because you've got the link to the slides, that'll automatically go into your drive. So you'll have that there, and then all the links are again on the slides, so they're all there. If you can't find anything, always just go to our blog. Debbie's saying apps and tools that can be used and are useful to know.
No, that's it. And if you come off this and the next time you go to lose it, you can't to use something, you can't find it, please just email us, and we can
go onto our blog.
Or to go onto our blog or email us, whatever is easier.
I'm trying desperately to get everybody to focus on the blog, because we're trying to, make that a real central point, so that anything new goes in there, and there's lots of resources there, and when we post things, everybody can find them.
So Adrian, you're just asking about how do you get read and write the laptop. So what you need to, in the top right hand corner, just the right of the address bar, the bookmark, if you don't see the read and write symbol, you need to click on the black, it's the black jigsaw puzzle, and then if you can't see it in the drop down menu, it'll give you the option to pin it. If it's not there, you have to do something called syncing. You sync your kind of your Google Chrome.
There's instructions on our technology document, because Robert Quigley made me put them in, so they're in there. There's the link to the form. Some people are not getting the form to work.
Okay. Yeah, and I apologize. I mean, I hope the link should work on the slides in the future, but again, let me know if there's any problems with this. We'll check them after this.
We'll check the ones that didn't work and see what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just click off on the slide and it deletes without you realizing it.
Okay, so we'll just give people a chance to do the feedback form, and again, thank you very much for listening and taking part today. And we'll stop recording now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.